Hi, I'm Tom Spiegel with the Spiegel Law Firm, where we represent people who've been wrongfully fired or afraid that they might be. Today, I want to talk about the unfortunate circumstance when your former employer may be sabotaging your current efforts to find a job. And what do you do about that? The first issue that this raises as a legal matter is defamation, right? Defamation is a legal claim that you bring when somebody is intentionally telling an untruth about you. There are some limitations to this law. The big one is that, first of all, the information has to be untrue. And if an employer is sharing a matter of opinion, and saying, I don't think they were the best employee, or giving that kind of feedback, that's not going to rise to the level of defamation. It has to be something more than that. So a classic example is if they wrongfully accused you of fraud. So the prospective employer calls your past employer, and your past employer says, we're pretty convinced that they were stealing while they were here. And let's say that's not true. Well, that would be a classic case of defamation, where they have told something that they knew to be untrue that was damaging to you. And fraud is a classic example of that. If that happens, then you can certainly contact let me say, you can do this under any circumstance. You can contact your former employer either through yourself or through counsel, and let them know of your suspicion. Say, hey, I'm trying to get a job. I hear that you guys are saying things that are untrue about me. That needs to stop. And sometimes a shot across the bow that way, whether or not what you were claiming could rise to the level of defamation, can be enough to get an employer to stand down. But if it's that kind of gray area where the employer is saying, well, they weren't the best employee and so we had to let them go, and let's assume it's true that you were fired from the former employer, then that's not defamation. That's unfortunate. Certainly is not the best practice for the employer to do that. But it's not illegal. Again, you can always, through counsel on your own, send a letter to your former employer. Sometimes it's a matter of just a rogue manager who doesn't understand that they need to be, at least giving you a neutral reference, which is basically, this is when they started, this is what their title was, and this is how much they earned, which is classic. Many big employers do this as a matter of course now, precisely because they want to avoid a defamation suit. The other thing to think about, and perhaps to raise with your former employer if you suspect they are doing this, and let me say that there are companies out there that you can hire to check your references and to see what they're saying about you. So there is that possibility. But if you suspect that this is happening, you can always put your former employer on notice that any current claim that you have, let's say that you have a claim against your former employer for wrongfully terminating you on the basis of discrimination. So, you're pregnant. They said, we don't do pregnancy here. You're fired. So you brought an action against them. Your employer, because you then have a duty to do something called mitigate damages, which basically means you have a duty to get another job, right? You have a duty to make sure that you are getting a paycheck. And if an employer is sticking its fingers in your efforts to get another job and preventing you from doing that, then that just makes that damages bigger for the former employer. So they can't fault you for not mitigating your damages if they are simultaneously telling your employer, your prospective employers, unflattering things about you. So those are the two things that you have to protect you in this situation. You have a defamation claim as the big one, and put them on notice that it is interfering with your ability to mitigate damages or get another job. It does happen. It's unfortunate, but those are your remedies. And again, you can always contact your former employer without even raising a legal claim on your own and through counsel and say, hey, look, guys, stand down. Let's cut it out. I'm just trying to get a new job here. And often that will be enough.